not all Americans are not okay with civilians being killed with American ammunition, with American money, with American weapons, with American blessings. Dear friends, welcome to Khanversations. I'm Muqtedar Khan, your host. And today I'm going to basically continue to do my third commentary on the Hamas-Israel war. And today I'm going to be focused on President Biden's speech that he gave about an hour ago. A lot of people are waiting to hear his statement and to see what he was going to say. And it was interesting. He laid out his policy and his response to what happened. I mean, we already had heard from him once, and his staff was doing a great job of sharing with the American people and the media exactly what the president's thoughts were, what was happening, the fact that he'd already spoken to Netanyahu 3 times, the Prime Minister of Israel, and so we had some idea of what was happening, etc. But there were certain questions that people really wanted to know as to how many American citizens had been killed in this war and how many Americans have been taken hostage, or if any Americans have been taken hostage, and if America was doing something about it. And so I'm going to basically summarize his speech for you. I would recommend that you go and watch it yourself. It was a short speech, and then I will provide a bit of an analysis. Dear friends, before we start discussing Biden's speech in earnest, please remember to subscribe to Khanversations, like the video, share it with your friends and your social network, and don't forget to press the bell icon. And those of you who want to support Khanversations can join the channel. The button to join the channel is right next to the button to subscribe. And if you can't find the button, then you can find a link to joining the channel in the video's description. So he started, President Biden, by essentially reaffirming his commitment to stand by Israel, and the United States stands with Israel. He described the event as pure, unadulterated evil, and basically tried to say that it was not in response to anything except that Hamas exists solely for the purpose of killing Jews, and therefore they are doing what they claim they want to do, which is kill Jews. It has nothing to do with Palestinian rights. This has nothing to do with anything else. And so I guess that's the American position, that Hamas's action is not a reaction to any geopolitical reality, but it is just that Hamas wants to kill Jews. So they go to this great length to do this. The attack, he says, we knew these numbers before, that it took about 1,000 Israeli lives and many thousand, close to 4,000 have been injured. He also mentioned that 14 Americans had been killed in the attack so far. And then he lamented the sheer evil of women being raped and paraded, about babies being killed. And essentially, he expressed the shock that most people in the world have felt. I'm here in Europe now, and I've spoken to students in Europe. I've spoken to some professors who are friends, and yes, the whole continent is in a state of shock at the brutality that Hamas has displayed in its act. Well, the thing is that this thing is covered very well, so there are lots and lots and lots of pictures that are being shared on social media. But you're not going to be seeing pictures of all the people who are going to be killed in the bombing. Nearly 700 Palestinians have already died as Israel has declared war on Gaza and attacked them. So you're not going to see the pictures of suffering Palestinians as you are seeing pictures of suffering Israelis. So there is a natural empathy generated towards the victims, whereas there's no empathy generated towards even the children in Palestine who've already died in the last 2 or 3 days. So the president essentially talked about the horrendous nature of the images that were coming, and he said it would be a long time before this trauma would go away. And then he talked about hostages, and he said that in order to deal with the fact that even some Americans have been taken hostage, he is going to send Americans to advise Israelis on how to deal with the hostage situation. So he reaffirmed America's support for Israel. We stand with Israel, and there is no justification for terrorism. And then he goes on to say that there is that loss of innocent life is heartbreaking, but there was a lot of innocent life lost in the last 3 days in Gaza too. But he did not feel the need to mention that at all. There was an interesting development, and I will talk about it later, but I also want to characterize the speech as something that very clearly is a campaign speech. This is not about United States president declaring the American position on this. He was also campaigning. That was quite obvious from the points that he was raising and the issues that he was talking, and the manner in which he was talking. Already, his potential rival, President Donald Trump, former President Donald Trump, had given a speech today declaring that if he was president, this would not have happened. Like he claims that if he was president, Russia would not have attacked Ukraine. So it was very clear that Mr. Biden was also campaigning because this is a huge failure of his foreign policy. There are those who feel that because a lot of ammunition, etc., may have been sent to Ukraine, Israel, like the question as to Israel dome, which is supposed to protect it from these rockets, so why did it protect it? How come is the 2,000 rockets from Hamas, which are not very sophisticated devices? Hamas is not an industrial power, neither is Gaza, but the rockets made there were able to land inside Israel. There's also the fear now among some people that the ammunition that is now being diverted towards Israel for all the weapons and munitions that Israel needs to attack Gaza, it will probably go on for weeks and weeks from now on, may undermine U.S. support to Ukraine. So there's another conversation going on in Washington. So America is promising that it is going to make sure that both Israel and Ukraine get everything that they need to continue with the wars. America is going to ensure that the wars go on smoothly. But there's an interesting issue that I want to highlight you. So in the first conversation that President Biden had with Netanyahu, he did not call for Netanyahu to exercise restraint. And his staff members went out of the way to let the press know that the president has not called for restraint. All countries in the world nearly have called for restraint and to ensure that innocent life is not lost. So I don't know why, but Mr. Biden is trying to signal, at least in the first 3 days, that he's okay with whatever intensity with which Israel responds to the attacks. And I guess he's okay if lots and lots of civilians, innocent children and women are killed in Gaza because he did not call for restraint. I'm sure there must have been a lot of criticism from within the government and otherwise too. So in his speech, he did indirectly call for restraint, and he said very clearly that Hamas is a terrorist organization and therefore it acted in the way it did, which is not respecting international law or any humanitarian law. There is no doubt about it. What Hamas has done is stunningly brutal and cruel in many ways, especially the way it dealt with those who were attending the music concert. That was horrendous. And the president is right that it is ISIS-like. But he made it very clear that countries, especially democratic countries, do not act like terrorist organizations, and they act according to rule of law. By now, people in India are having a lot of interesting conversations about the term rule of law, because apparently Mr. Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, while talking to the leader of the United Arab Emirates, Mohammed bin Zayed, said that India should be paying attention to the fact that of the importance of rule of law. Anyway, so the president said that countries and democratic countries especially act according to the rules of law, and it's only terrorists who break laws. So I guess this is an indirect signal to his critiques here in the US, who are saying that, are you giving Israel a green signal to do whatever it can or whatever it wants to do? And what, because in a couple of weeks, if this war continues and the number of civilian deaths in Gaza begins to escalate, then this so-called unity with which the West is responding will fracture very quickly. They're not, all Americans are not okay with civilians being killed. With American ammunition, with American money, with American weapons, with American blessings. So there will be people who will be raising voices against arbitrary killing of civilians, devastating neighborhoods, devastating civilian infrastructure, just destroying homes and apartments, etc. That Israel has already done in the last 3 days. It's flattened 2 residential buildings. So I think there's going to be very little appetite after a week or two for this, and there'll be a lot of pressure on other countries to raise voice against killing of innocent civilians in Gaza. So, Mr. President, in his first public address on this issue, I mean, he has spoken very briefly, reacted briefly, but this is his statement. He does, in a way, send a signal to Mr. Netanyahu that, yeah, you can respond and you can destroy Hamas, but behave like a civilized country, not like a terrorist organization. Don't go around killing other people. So in that sense, I give him full marks for saying that. But he was, like I said, this is a campaign speech. There, he would have lost a lot of voters if he had not said that. He would lose a lot of campaign finance support also if he had not said that. So that's one interesting point that I wanted to make about it. He also talked about how America has enhanced its force posture, sending aircraft carriers, sending an aircraft carrier to the region, and also there were some fighter jets, etc., which were going to be rotated, and they have put a pause on the rotation, so those fighter planes are in place in case others get involved. Who's going to attack? Syria, Iran? Iran has said very clearly it has no hands in it. Iran does not want to engage directly with Israel at the moment. If Iran wanted, it could have, especially when it had troops and forces in Syria some time ago. So that's apparently America is out there to fight other countries if they decide to participate in it. Well, we shall see. I'm not very sure any other countries will, but Hezbollah could. As this war prolongs, it is possible that Hezbollah might engage. There are already rockets being fired from the north. And I don't think the United States is going to react to Hezbollah. The another point that he was trying to make was that we reject hate in America too, and so he's alerted the FBI and the police to be on alert. But it was interesting to say that we are against hatred of Jews and hatred of Muslims. So basically, he basically warned Americans to not take the law in their hands or give vent to their hatred and talk. So basically said that he spoke against anti-Semitism as well as against Islamophobia in the same breath. And for this also, I give him full points. These are the two issues on which I agree with President Biden. But he did not talk about the context of the war. It's as if it happened out of the blue. He did not talk about the fact that he was going ahead with the Abrahamic Accords. It was vital to his re-election campaign that Saudi Arabia and Israel sign the peace process, especially since more and more people are feeling that his decisions with regards to the Russia-Ukraine war are not necessarily in the interest of the United States, and possibly not even in the interest of the Ukrainians themselves. But nevertheless, it's not exactly a win for President Biden what's going on in Ukraine. And so he has foreign policy failures, and he's supposed to be an expert in foreign policy. So he did not talk about it at all. He did not mention that. And I think that's not being fair. and that's not being honest with the American people. Americans generally are not very well informed. The vast majority of them are too busy with their TikToks and their Instagrams and their fun games and football and this and that. But they would have listened to the president. This is an important event that has happened, and a lot of people are watching it on social media, etc. And they see the war unfold right in front of them. So they would have paid attention. It was important that he bring it up and provide the context, because a lot of people in a lot of countries have also said this, that perhaps one of the reasons why Hamas has conducted this brutal terrorist action, and it is a terrorist action, there's no doubt about it, is basically to ensure that the Abrahamic Accords between Saudi Arabia and Israel don't come through, because that would in many ways spell the death of the Palestinian movement. If Saudi Arabia abandons the Palestinians, then they have nothing to gain from it. And the president didn't talk about it. He did not assure the Palestinians that there is going to be any support from him for the two-state solution, that he's going to do anything at all to move forward. All he's going to do is give Israel ammunition and give advice on how to handle the hostage situation. And he's sending weapons and American troops and forces in the region to protect Israel from other countries if they decide to intervene in this matter. So that's as far as the president's speech. But there are a couple of other issues that I want to talk to you about, which are quite interesting given what President Biden had to say. So apparently, the Prince Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia, the crown prince, as well as now the prime minister of Saudi Arabia, did call Mahmoud Abbas, the leader of, or the president of the Palestinian Authority, and reassured him of his unwavering support. Unwavering support. It's like when Biden says that my support for Israel is ironclad. Well, MBS has come up with a statement just like that. My unwavering support for Palestinian rights. I wish Mahmoud Abbas had asked him to explain what he means by Palestinian rights. Does that mean that MBS is reaffirming his unwavering support for the two-state solution and the Palestinian state or not? But nevertheless, you can see from the statements coming from Saudi Arabia, calling for de-escalation, not much condemnation at all, and constantly talking about the Palestinian rights and the Palestinian state, and the necessity to move forward and precipitate a just and fair solution to this problem. That tells you that MBS is feeling the pressure, and these Abrahamic Accords perhaps may not go forward at the speed at which it was going forward in the last few weeks. So in that sense, you could say that Hamas has achieved partial victory and of course, is going to pay a huge price. A lot of innocent Palestinians are going to die in Gaza, and of course, Gaza's most of its infrastructure will probably be destroyed. But it is possible that Saudi Arabia will essentially put a brake on its rush, and Mr. Biden may not have an Abrahamic Accord to brag about when he stands up in those debates against President Trump. Those are probably a year away. I'm not very sure that they both will be able to stand up. They're octogenarians, nearly 80, each of them. Maybe they'll sit in wheelchairs and do the debate. Whatever it is, Mr. Biden may not be able to claim a victory in the Middle East. And as things proceed, it does appear that unless there is a peace process that Putin is willing to accept, or Putin dies somehow, the war is not going to end before the election either. So we have going into very tricky few next weeks, and I have a feeling that if the Israelis are very brutal, then it will change public opinion very quickly in Europe and in the United States, and of course in the Arab world. There's also one more thing, is the issue of the hostages. The Hamas is saying that it will execute one hostage every time Israel targets a building without giving prior notice. what is going to happen now is that it's going to be far more difficult for Israel to target and kill Hamas leaders and Hamas members, etc., because if they don't give a warning, a hostage will die. And if they give a warning, then Hamas will basically escape that building. So this is the tricky part of it all, is how Israel and the United States managed to get around the hostage situation, to go after Hamas, or they start negotiations through Egypt or Jordan already to get back hostages. And it remains to be seen which hostages the US is going to prioritize. Is the US going to give a higher priority to American citizens or not? That remains to be seen. In the speech, it was not very clear that the president did not come out and say, no matter what happens to everything else, I'm going to ensure that Americans come back home safe and sound. He's already being criticized by the Republicans for giving Iran the $6 billion that actually belong to Iran, not American taxpayers, as the Republicans sometimes hint, but in exchange for a prisoner swap. So this is going to be very tricky going forward. That means I'll be talking to you more often about this show. I'm still in Rome. Today I spent a day at the Vatican. It was just amazing, the splendor and the stunning. I don't know whether to call it beautiful. It was very ostentatious, very rich, and very stunning. Especially the museum with the treasures in the museum, and Michelangelo's painting in the Sistine Chapel, and then of course St. Peter's Basilica was just fabulous. So I did see all those. I've shared some pictures with members of Khanversations. I will share some more later. I have also shared a few on my Twitter handle, so you can go and see them there if you're interested. So this is Muqtedar Khan. Thank you for watching Khanversations. If you have not already subscribed to Khanversations, do subscribe to Khanversation, ring the bell icon, and don't forget to share this video with your friends and your network. And do come back and watch again, because this is very critical. This war could completely change regional and global dynamics and the agenda, regional and global political and geopolitical agenda. So until next time, this is Muqtedar Khan. Take care.